Broadcast is live.
Man, who's
Right.
that guy? Who's that guy up there?
Wait, is that Nate? The
Been a
Nate
hot
Burns?
minute. Hot minute.
Nate, live from Knoxville, Tennessee tonight. I mean, so Knoxville, Tennessee in the house, Coatesville, Pennsylvania, Aubrey, Texas. Man, it's a good group tonight.
Good group.
I'll
It's
speak
fun
for,
when I talk to
you
people,
guys.
and I'm like, we got this outdoor channel. We got a guy in Texas. We got a guy in Pennsylvania. It makes it seem bigger than what it really is.
I know. It's great, though. I love it.
It is awesome.
I mean, this Rooted team's growing. It's great. It's not by people, but by states.
States.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I like
Cool.
it.
And we're only just a little over a month away from Colorado. So
Can't wait.
I know. I don't want to talk about it in front of you, though. I feel bad.
I know that was like the worst thing that could happen with this pandemic. That 2-week drill is right over the date.
Yeah, that hurts. That
I know.
hurts.
I
I
know.
was really upset by that.
That's
But
all right. Well,
Hey, if you guys are out there, let us know if you're there. Comment,
Yeah.
say hello. Share tonight. We're going to be diving into James 2 tonight. Nate's going to lead us. So say hello. Tell us what's new. Hey, Heather. Heather's here. Let me tell you something about Heather. Heather has been dedicated to the Rooted 100. How about it?
Seriously. It's
I
impressive.
mean, I've missed like 4 or 5 days, and I don't think she's missed any. Neither has Jarrett. Jarrett and Heather are like, they
carrying
get
the
like
team.
5 stars carrying it through.
Dude, so I haven't posted a ton, but I missed it. I missed my first day today.
Yeah, but did you really?
Yeah, I have not missed a day, and after yesterday, just my feet are sore, and like my body's just worn down. I mean, literally 70 days in a row.
It's
I was
okay.
like, dude, like I need a day, and I needed to just relax and hang, and that's what I did.
There
So
might be days that you didn't post, but
Yeah,
yesterday you guys were hiking hard. I mean, you must have put on 6-7 miles yesterday, I
Yeah.
would think.
yeah, I think Dylan said 6 or 7. So that
Yeah.
was a lot.
Heather says she loves the new hats. Yeah, so Heather, we're sold out of these hats already.
We have the
we
black.
have
We have the black.
We have the
ones.
black. So I don't know if you can see Nate's black. It kind of looks pink, purple.
It's not pink. It's black.
It looks pink. Heather, if you want a pink one, we will order you a pink one. How's that? Seriously.
Yeah.
Heather, I will send you a pink Rooted hat for being dedicated to the Rooted 100. So you tell me what color you want, and I'll send you whatever. Let's see.
Don't post that comment.
Yeah. Yep, you do. That's true, Dave.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen.
It's already 9 o'clock, 9:10 out there, and Dave's got an infant baby. Infant baby? She's still an infant? Yeah, who knows? Time flies so fast. Was she 4 months old, right?
Huh?
5 months old? 6
7?
months old. 7? You look like there's a question mark there. I don't know. 7?
7, yeah.
All right,
7
cool.
months yesterday.
I love that.
I'm flying.
Good. Nate, man, what's new with you? I know you moved Knoxville, Tennessee.
Been down in Knoxville. So it's been a little bit busy, but finally feel a little more settled in. Got moved in last week. We got our baseball guys showing up at the end of the week this week. So starting to get in the groove and hit the road running. But cool, today I got to do my first in-person church service in Knoxville, but I listened to the sermon of one of the churches around here, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it, which was pretty cool because, I don't know, it's hit or miss on whether you like the first one because there's so many churches around, but luckily there's a lot of people within our organization and people that I've met that are churchgoers around here. So got some good leads.
That's great.
Excited. So
That's great, man. I'm glad it's working out for you, and that's a challenge to move anytime, but to pick up and move during this mess.
Yeah.
The blessing is it was meant to be some way or another. If you don't know what it is already, you will at some point, right?
Right. Right. So yeah. Do we choose who's praying? It might have to
We
be me.
did.
I'll kick us off today.
All right.
Jesus, thank you again just for this time. Thank you just for the opportunity to gather here. Thank you for each person that is just coming to hang out with us tonight and continuing to just be part of this community. We're just really grateful for them and for everybody that listens after this. God, I pray that you'll just speak through us tonight. Help us just to use your word and just speak truth. And hopefully people will be able to just take something away tonight, whether that's something that challenges them or encourages them. Those are God, a big part of the community. So thank you again for tonight, for this time. For all these things we need. Amen.
Amen. All right. So I'm back and I'm leading tonight. So we're gonna see how this goes. But it's chapter 2, verse 1 through 13.
You got like a fan or something on over there?
Let me check.
Yeah, it's pretty loud. Or maybe I don't know who it is, but
I don't hear it. Maybe it's me.
It could be you. No, I don't hear it anymore.
Is that a little better?
Yeah.
All right. So I came up with a few questions, and I think the best way to kind of go at this is just read to where I ended each question. So I have 4 questions, and it's kind of set up kind of 3 or 4 verses at a time, and then just kind of talk to them. And for those that are listening, I'd love to hear some of the feedback on these questions because I just think I don't know. I think it could be more of a group topic than us just speaking to somebody else. But so to start, chapter 2, and we'll go. The first one is verses 1 through 3, and so it says, "My brothers, show no partiality as you hold the faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory. For if a man wearing a gold ring and fine clothing comes into your assembly, and a poor man in shabby clothing also comes in, and if you pay attention to the one who wears the fine clothing and say, 'You sit here in a good place,' while you say to the poor man, 'You stand over there,' or 'Sit down at my feet.'" And so my first question is for verses 1 through 3. What kind of person or sinner do we tend to discriminate against? Then I have another question as well. But what are some of the things that you guys came up with that?
I mean, I think in general, I think society sometimes, the less fortunate, right? I mean, that's what it says there, kind of, right? The less fortunate, sometimes I think, as far as I'll get real specific. So sometimes I think we show kind of discrimination towards people who might appear homeless, because sometimes we cast judgment quickly to, well, why don't they just go get a job? Or I'm working, why can't they go work? That kind of thing. And I mean, I've been guilty of that at times, to be honest. Sometimes I go, hey, I'm working hard. I'm coming home from a long day, and this guy's got a can. And sometimes you go, is he really homeless? Is he not? I think people do that in general. So that would be one way that comes to my mind for sure.
Yeah. For me, if you look at the church as a whole, I think something that the church at times does a poor job of is kind of categorizing different sin that they don't want to talk about. One that comes to mind is anything related to sexual sin, whether that's sex before marriage, lust, pornography, whatever that might be. It's a topic that I just feel like the church kind of looks down upon more than other things. They don't really want to talk about it, and it's just a way of discriminating. When we might touch on this later in this, I'm not sure, but sin is sin. It doesn't matter what it is. And it seems like we're a little more accepting if you struggle with, maybe you're an alcoholic or you struggle with a drug addiction. The church kind of wants to bring those people in and help them. And then people who are kind of stuck in sexual sin, it's kind of well, we don't really want to talk about that because that's a little more touchy topic. So I think that's something that's, and I'm sure I've been guilty of that too. Something that the church almost discriminates against people based on the sin that they're conducting.
That's a good one. I didn't think of it that way. That's good.
Yeah. I know for me, one of the things that I was thinking about more just from a discriminatory thing was when I look at other churches, I can sometimes judge as well. For me, I mean, the church that I listened to today, which I thoroughly enjoyed, reminded me of my church back home. And it was called First Baptist Concord. And it was just like really real, very personable. And I know for me sometimes, and I don't mean to step on toes or anything if anyone goes to this type of church, but some of the very like charismatic churches, I like personally struggle with. And when I was thinking about this, I was just thinking about more of like discriminating against that type of congregation, I guess. And I got to thinking about how, like, you know, for me, I've been lucky to have the mindset of like, I don't necessarily look at poor or wealthy, but I look at maybe the type of believer. And that's like not right of me to do at all, because that's kind of putting me higher than somebody else. And Lord knows, like, I've got plenty of issues myself. And so when I looked at it in that sense, I felt pretty challenged. Yeah. But the second question I had was what
Can I
kind of
jump in
people?
really quick, Nate?
Yeah.
I think in addition to that, you know, while, especially when you're looking at like churches, while, you know, discrimination is obviously never right, there is at times like a righteous judgment that needs to take place. Like there's certain things that are black and white that, like, if a church, and I say the church, I mean it could be actual church, or it could just be like a group of believers or a believer, like if they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and unfortunately there's a lot of churches that do that, like, to me that's not discrimination. If you're speaking truth and saying, look, this is wrong of you to do that. So there is a level of like righteous judgment versus like discrimination. I think we probably land more on the discrimination side of things, and the judgment is more like to make ourselves feel good. But there is a level of judgment that actually is okay to call people out if they're not living in truth and living, you know, by what the word says.
I mean, Dave and I have a really good friend that just went through that actually at a church not too long ago, a couple months ago.
Right. That was I was thinking of.
That's what we had a really deep discussion around it. And that was the perfect situation, right? Where, I mean, him and his wife left the church because of that, simply because of that specific church, right? And now he's, you know, looking for a new home and stuff. But it happens for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so my second question with this part is what kind of people do we try harder on than others? And one thing this week was so cool, partially because I got to be on the baseball field again for the first time since March. But we had a tournament in Greenville, South Carolina, and I used to travel to Greenville pretty often. And there's a guy that is downtown. Now, he's not homeless, but he lives in like one of those, like, it's basically whatever your next step up from homeless would be. And for anyone that has my Instagram and stuff, you probably saw the video. But I met him about 3 years ago. His name's Nate. And I heard him like singing gospel music and making all sorts of noise and stuff on the street. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And then got talking to him and getting to know him. And then every time I went down there, I got to see Nate. And so when I think about like, what are the kind of people that I try harder on? It's kind of the people that you see them grasping onto it because it's one of the things they only have. So Nate was having hip surgery this week. And I know he's had other health issues and stuff. And so I took him to CVS to get him some stuff for like his house and whatever, make sure he has cleaning supplies and whatnot. But I asked him, I said, "You're staying in the word, right?" And he goes, "Well, of course, brother Nate." He said, "If it wasn't for Jesus, like I wouldn't have anything else to hold on to." And I just thought that was the coolest thing because we can make the argument, well, he's not really homeless or whatever, but he continues to live the same life, living for Jesus, and he makes stops from restaurant to restaurant to check on all the, you know, people working inside, and he all calls like the waitress's sister and all this and that, and he asked for a prayer request. And I just think that's the coolest thing. And when I think of like, those type of people, I love investing in because you can, I guess, like see the return, even though it's not necessarily what I'm looking for, but it just gives you light of the situation and light to see. But then also like those fresh believers that are really on fire, I love to try and put more resources in their hands than necessarily the wealthy, because for me, I know the importance of growth in your faith. And I know the importance of like, hey, how solid can we make the foundation? That way they can live a life for Christ. And so those were two of the kind of main groups that I saw for myself.
I mean, people like Nate, your friend Nate that you're talking about now, like, I mean, that guy's a true blessing, because like he's the guy that like humbles us, right? You look at like what he like materialistically might have. And, like you said, in some cases, it's more evident of his faith, right? It's more obvious of his faith, maybe sometimes because, and we all kind of, I think we go through real strong relationships, and sometimes we struggle a little bit at times. And somebody like that, like he's just rock solid because, like you said, like that's what he has. He doesn't need the other distractions in his life, even though, I'm sure he goes through a lot of hard things, hard times, whatever. Like he doesn't have all these material things probably, or all these like real life distractions maybe to keep him. Like keeps him grounded. He's a lesson to us. That's awesome that you have the relationship with him and what you're doing with him and stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. Nate, can you just ask your question one more time?
Yeah. What kind of people do we try harder on than others?
So when you mean try harder, just like investing in?
I think, as far as investing.
Yeah. I think for me personally, it's just people of like less privilege, I think, that are struggling with things, that are working hard, and they just don't have the means to get what they need. Like those are people that I really like to try to invest in, and people that like, I don't know how to describe this, but maybe like can't defend themselves almost. Does that makes sense? Like almost like they're helpless. Like they whether they're like younger people or people who are older, I don't know. Like people can take advantage of them, and I like that. Just is something that drives me nuts. And so just like trying to stand up for people that almost can't stand up for themselves, I guess, is a better way to do it. One good example, which I know is a hot topic in our country, but I'm going to say it anyway, is unborn children is one that need to be stood up for. And I have a big passion around that. So.
Yep.
That one I will not back down from.
No reason to apologize for that one.
Yeah, I will not back down from that one. So.
Yeah, and nor should you.
So yeah, I would say those groups of people that can't really stand up for themselves, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would say kids for one, especially like having a 6-year-old now.
Yeah.
I've got no, and I should have probably more patience for it, but I guess I would say I have no patience for bullying or anything like that. I'm very aware of that. Interactions with kids nowadays, whether they're 3 or 18 or 17 or whatever, there's no room for that in this world, but it happens. And definitely kids and their well-being and stuff. And
Yeah.
To say about that, but I would say youth. That's my big one.
For sure.
Cool. So then we're going to move on to verse 4. And verse 4 says, "Have you not then made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts?" I'll keep reading just a little bit. "Listen, my beloved brothers, has not God chosen those who are poor in the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom, which he has promised to those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor man. Are not the rich the ones who oppose you, and the ones who drag you into court. I don't want to go too much farther because I have a couple side notes, but specifically, in what way does favoritism make one judge? And then how does favoritism make one judge with evil thoughts?
You an answer, Nate? Want to think about it?
I can go first.
Good idea.
One thing I thought about, though, was when we do come to judge, and I think, obviously, it's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, for me, churches that do things a little more charismatic or a little more, I don't want to say, like, theatrical or anything, because I don't want that to sound bad, but it's a lot more going on than what I have at my church, or what I'm kind of used to. But for me, I know I kind of judge that type of church, I guess, and I don't necessarily do it justly, because I think for us as people, when we come to judging somebody or something, I don't think it's very normal for us to do it in a just manner. And I also think we kind of judge hypocritically, because we're going to put somebody or thoughts on some other person where, really we might, I wish I had an example, but we might deserve that same thing. And so, when I think of whether I'm giving favoritism to the wealthy of, biblical knowledge or the truth and faith, or the poor, and allowing them to have the same seat, for me, I want to surround myself with kind of the spiritually wealthy, because I believe those people can be encouragers to my walk, but I want to make sure I'm kind of investing in the ones that aren't as much. And I think you're going to leave more of an impact on a person giving them the seat next to that wealthy person, and having them be able to kind of work together, than just putting them kind of in the back burner.
I think one example that I can think of that I think is more relevant than it's ever been is judging people by like their political stance, where they stand politically, and not really getting to know the person or talking to that person or hearing their heart on why they stand, whatever side that they're on, or what they believe and what they stand for. It's just, oh, you're on this side, well, you're either with me or you're against me, and not really getting to know people and getting to know their heart. And I think there's a lot of judgment there, and I think that honestly why we have so much divide in our country is because we're just judging each other so hard without having conversations and actually listening to judgment, and it ends. And we're kind of seeing the results of that, unfortunately.
Yeah. So listening to you guys talk, the thing that comes to my mind is favoritism is born out of experience. So like born out of like a lot of times how we were raised, or like how we grew up, certain parts of the country, there's no getting around it. I mean, people were raised, when it comes to like discrimination and racism and all that stuff that's going on now, I mean, that's like in them, and people have to, instead of basing their like opinions, judgments, and things like that on their past experience, when you become a believer and you give your life to Christ, like you have to have that look at it. Like you have to have a new look. It has to come through a new lens.
Yeah.
And favoritism could be how you grew up, could be, your work experience. I mean, I think a lot of times, who you're around in your job, sometimes you kind of get numb, and you have to go back to really like how would, instead of favoritism, like how would God want us to love that person that we might not necessarily hang around with? You know what I mean? Like hang around with that work, or, in whatever field we're in, and church too. I think that's too, like, I think, there's, to Nate's point, you have a lot of folks that have grown up. I grew up in a traditional church where there was pews and hymnal books, hymnals and things like that. And I think it goes both ways, but I think a lot of times, folks that have grown up that way too judge folks that are in more of like a modern church setting, right? Like, well, like you can't be as committed to the Lord if you don't have this traditional church service. So I've seen some of that go on and heard conversations, around that, but that's just kind of my thoughts on this topic, question, whatever.
Good question.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Oh, you have some?
Before, I just wanted to talk about something before you moved on. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Mine's going to cut into the next question anyway.
Yeah. So as I was, kind of reading here a little bit, it talks about did God not choose the poor in the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom? That just made me think of the Beatitudes, where it talks about. I'll just read a couple. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Blessed are those who mourn, they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, they will inherit the earth. So those are just a couple, and just how like these people that we see the world that just seem to not have it, whether they're poor or whatever it might be. Like these are the people that are going to inherit the kingdom of God. That's a good reminder of that as we're looking through this verse.
It's good.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to touch on this in a second because James refers to the Great Commandment and he refers to Leviticus 19:18. And part of the verse is loving your neighbor and kind of, well, I'll jump into it, but because in 6 it says, are not the rich the ones who oppress you and the ones who drag you into court? And basically back in that time, the rich would try and take the unwealthy to court because then they could take their land. And what it did, especially in Galilee, I believe it was Galilee, it led to a war because then the people just were fighting against each other. And so I think about right now, the way we treat if we're trying to bring down those who are unwealthy or those who can't kind of withstand some of the circumstances that the wealthy can, that's where the greatest divide is. And I think that's the power of the church, is because we have the opportunity to keep all of that together. The power of the church is it doesn't matter your color, your race, your background, your wealth status, whatever. You have the opportunity to keep that together. And that's just, how welcoming are you to whatever guy, if he comes in shabby clothes or in, a suit and tie. But yeah. So verse 7 is where we left off. Are they not the ones who blaspheme the honorable name by which you were called? 8, if you really fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You are doing well. But if you show partiality, you are committing sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. Verse 10, for whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has become guilty of all of it. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. If you do not commit adultery but do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. So my question for this one, and I kind of touched on it real briefly, but I was asking, why does James refer to the Great Commandment as the royal law? And how does favoritism break the royal law in regards to the rich or poor person?
Well,
I got nothing.
That's what you mean. So favoritism and I have an ESV Bible too, and I also got some other notes. So favoritism and discrimination are violators of the kingdom of law. Obviously, the royal law refers to Matthew 22, which is love your neighbor. And the notes say, so law belonging to the king, with reference here to God's law, as the apex of the kingdom rules for ethical conduct. Just talks about the royal law.
Mm-hmm.
Can you ask the question, Nate?
Yeah, and why does James refer to the Great Commandment as the royal law? And then how does favoritism break the royal law? And so for me, and you can kind of work off this, but I think it is fairly simple in the sense of having to love your neighbor and just keeping that commandment of, treating somebody the way you would want to be treated. And I think that's why, if I ask the question, how does favoritism break it? Because there's no equality in it. And especially nowadays, when I say the word equality, there's a lot of things that are in front of our face where we're probably challenged, or we have to ask ourselves, am I treating the person next to me equal as I would, somebody that I may give favoritism to? Or, and I think hopefully we've all been able to kind of think about, do I really do that? Or if I feel I don't, how can I be better? And so, yeah.
Good. I don't have anything to add to that.
I think too, like sometimes we think because it's so specific as thy neighbor, obviously, and maybe you guys, this is obvious, but maybe not to everybody, that your neighbor obviously is your neighbor, right? So it's like anybody, but it's your family. Like it's your spouse, it's your brother, it's your sister, it's people you live with. Sometimes we like go past that, I think. So we go, well, it's our neighbor. It's the guy I'm going to meet on the street, or the guy that's going to walk in the door. Like, no, it's who you live with. It's those people too. And sometimes that's the hardest, family sometimes, especially, I would say in the last, 3-4 months with everything that's going on, I think it's pretty safe to say that not all family members agree on certain things that are happening in the world right now. Yeah. So that makes it tough too. And it's just a reminder,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing too to touch on here, which is just an important point that the Bible is very clear on, is in verse 10. Nate, I don't know if you're going to touch on this or not, but it just says, the one who obeys the whole law but fails in one point has become guilty of all of it. Just this idea that if you sin in any way, even in the smallest way, the Bible is saying that you're guilty of breaking everything, breaking all the laws, and you've sinned in every way. There's no levels to sin. Sin is sin. One sin is as much as any other sin. And I think it's just important to understand that. Also from a forgiveness standpoint, when Jesus went to the cross and died and took the sin, he wasn't saying, okay, well, Dave is gonna have 10 sins, and Nate's gonna have 3, Corey's gonna have 25, and that's just not how it works. It's like you break the law, like even this good person that does good things breaks the law, and this person over here who murders people and steals and does all these things, in Jesus' eyes, they're equal. They've both broken all of it. And he went to the cross and died for both of them equally. And I think it's important, like that. This verse is pretty profound, the way that it really is able to break that down for us. And I think it's just an important point to understand.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because a question I want to ask, because I think of sin and I think of like, well, there's lighter sins and there's heavier sins. But like, are you still asking that heavy sin person to come to church? Think about, and I'm going to be just completely like in your face about this, but like, think if a rapist came up to you and said, I want to come to church. Like, we don't want to necessarily look at sin with the same weight of one another, but what is our duty and what is our job? It's to expand the kingdom. And I don't think at any point, I don't think any story is too heavy that they still can't walk through the gates of heaven. Because with grace and with redemption, there's chance. But are you still going to do that? like, I mean, that's going to be a very uncomfortable if we're ever confronted with that. But you think about like the weight of sin and what they're saying here. If you do one, you're doing all.
Yeah.
And I think that's very powerful.
I think it touches back to what I was mentioning before, how like the church doesn't want to touch certain sins, like the sexual sin. Like they just don't. That's just something they don't want to touch as much. And I think it just is to your question. Like I think that I think as humans we do that, and we shouldn't be, right? Like you said, like a rapist versus someone who like stole a nickel out of the little coin jar at the store. In Jesus' eyes, those are both sinners, and he went to the cross and paid for both of their sins. And we should look at them as such, no differently. We should look at them as someone that Jesus died for.
Yeah,
That's a hard thing to do, but it's truth.
And there is amazing Christians all over the world that somebody brought into church or introduced them to someone in church that are now just speaking word, right? Like people have done horrific physical acts to people, murder, whatever. And, there's people that are going back in, and I know you're just referencing like that kind of stuff, but like going back into prisons, obviously.
For sure.
People of Jesus, like there's a lot of that going on. And just think if like you didn't, that's how I look at it. Is like if I didn't invite that person in, like who else is missing out on being introduced to the Lord, like that. It certainly doesn't help that person, of course, but
I think one thing that is really hard as believers for us to grasp is this idea that someone could live a really good life and do really good things and not have really a life of sin. They're still a sinner, but not really have a life of sin, like a really good life. They do things for people. They give money away. They give their time away. And if they don't give their life to Christ, they're not going to spend eternity with him. And there could be someone that lives an entire life of sin, whatever, murders people, rapes people, does all these really horrific things, and a minute before he passes away, decides that, hey, I need forgiveness for the things I've done, and gives his life to Christ. He's going to spend eternity with him. I mean, look at the thief on the cross. Perfect example. I don't think that our minds can really grasp that level of grace. But it's there for everyone. It's just truth, and it's really hard to understand.
Heather says, I have an easier time to encourage and welcome someone that committed a heavy sin than I do with those that have directed heavy sin at me. Diving deeper this past month into the Bible about forgiveness, because I've been hanging on to things that have hurt me in the past. That's a good one.
Yeah.
When it's directly done to you, it's not as easy.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm good at that, because I am not good at that. But we have to get to a point where, okay, Jesus forgave me of all the terrible things that I've done. Like, I need to turn around and give grace to everybody that I come in contact with. And that's not accepting the sin that they're in, obviously. Like, we can condemn the sin, but Christ still died for them.
The hardest thing, I think, too, which I know we're talking about, like on the surface, maybe like one instance, right? But what do you do when you continuously keep giving grace to someone and they keep continuing to hurt you?
Yeah, right?
I
mean, it's tricky. It's tricky,
Nate's like, I know.
I mean, I've had the same conversation a lot lately, and I don't know why it keeps getting brought up, but like, I think it's so easy to justify somebody that does a sin that isn't harmful to others. And I think that, touching on what Heather said, when something's being done directly to you, absolutely your mind wants to judge that person more than the next, and it doesn't want to give them a chance. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily the love of God, and that's not what we're called to do. And it is extremely difficult to handle those situations, because in my mind, I want to say there's one justifiable sin there's a sin that's more justifiable than something else. Sure. But there's not.
A perfect example, and I'm sure you've all seen these, that I just don't know how people do this. I would like to think that I could do this, but I honestly, just completely honest, I don't know, where people, someone has taken the life of one of their loved ones, and in the courtroom, they'll literally say, I forgive you for what you've done. I don't hate you. Like, that is the love of Christ. Like, literally, someone murders like one of your loved ones, and you can stand in front of that person and say, I forgive you. I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so powerful. So powerful.
The Lord never tests us to see how weak our faith is. He tests us to see how strong our faith is. And that's why we go through these types of things.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think sometimes when you're going through a really tough time, you're going like, hey, he's pushing me, like, no, he's giving it to you because he wants to see how strong your faith is,
What else you got?
Man.
Guys losing it.
I just had to absorb that for a second.
I like it.
Whew. All right. Well, just for time's sake, we're going to move on just a little bit. Last two verses, 12, starting at 12. So speak and so act as those who are to be judged under the law of liberty. Verse 13, for judgment is without mercy to one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. And the last question I had was just, in what ways is showing better regards toward the wealthy a denial of mercy?
Good question.
I know for me, the note I had was just, obviously we have been shown mercy. And so kind of touching on the stuff that we just talked about, we have to be able to show mercy to those who are poor or unwealthy or, unjustifiable into the church. And I think it goes to thinking about faith without works. And God calls for a relationship in our lives. And I think through the New Testament, it talks a little more about, through the Old Testament, it talks a little more about works and works with your faith. But through the New Testament, it conquers having that relationship. And I think it is our duty and our job to bring other people to have those opportunities. And if we weren't doing that, I think that's where the denial of mercy is. We're not giving mercy to the person that we don't invite to church, or that we don't have, we don't put them on that pedestal seat to be able to give them the opportunity to experience Jesus. And I think that is where, for me, that's kind of where I see how that fits in.
And it's real quick. And all I was going to say is, and who are we to not give mercy?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. The amount of grace and mercy that we've been given, we've literally been given life. Like you can't give any more. Who are we to not pass that on to somebody else that in our minds offends us? Like, we've been given life. We've been given everything.
I mean, yeah. Like, God's tapping us on the shoulder when stuff like that happens, whether you're aware of it or not, when you're not giving mercy in some way. He's like, excuse me.
Yeah. Remember what I did for you? You could show a little mercy to this person, talk to them, and invite them out and share some truth with them. Like, I took some pain for you.
Yeah, for sure. Heather says, that's the beauty of the challenges in life. My relationship with God has been strongest when life isn't going as I wanted or expected, so much so that I started to miss the challenge because of the focus I had on him during those times. Yeah, that's true. Good stuff, Heather, tonight. Good stuff. Yeah. Appreciate your contributions.
Yeah. You can post Jason's comment too. Did you see that one? That's a good one. You read that.
You need to be careful that the one doesn't pull you in. Sometimes we will lose people because they're going in a different direction. We as Christians can't follow them. So good.
I think it's a good point. I think we need to show mercy and grace, but eventually we just need to say, look, like, if you're going to continue to go that way and you're going to pull me down that path, like, I can't take part in that. I can't. And then so that's a good point. Like, not to just not blindly follow down the path and then all of a sudden you're in the same sin as they are. That's not That's not showing mercy and grace.
Hey, God does the work. God's going to one that God's there to do the work.
Yeah.
We're there to, answer questions or, that kind of thing. But
yeah, you have to guard yourself for sure. That's a good point.
Well, I think too, it comes with being courageous, but you have to refuse to compromise. Like you can't, if you're experiencing life with somebody and they have sins and stuff that could pull you down, you have to have the refusal to compromise. You can't allow yourself to fall in the track of maybe thinking something is acceptable, or maybe thinking like, well, it's not like so bad. No, I think in order to be courageous with Christ, you have to refuse to compromise.
That's good.
One thing,
right
story. Have you guys seen the movie 42 about Jackie Robinson?
No.
I think I have. I don't remember.
So one of the scenes in it is when Pee Wee Reese, the shortstop, goes over to Jackie and puts his arm around him. And it's a cool scene, but because obviously it was, a white player putting his arms around the black player who the whole crowd was booing and really, obviously they may have been throwing stuff at him, whatever, and just trying to harass the heck out of him. But Pee Wee went up, put his arm around him. And one of the cool things about that scene obviously shows, that Pee Wee Reese was willing to walk through the hardships with him. But one of the things that his wife talked about, Jackie Robinson's wife down the road, was that Jackie was saying to her about how it was such an encouragement for him to see Jackie, or just such an encouragement for Jackie to have one of his white teammates go out of his way to express his support for him. And I think that's such a powerful image, because for us, we have to have that same kind of mentality of we need to be able to go out of our way and kind of stop what we're doing to bring that next person to Christ, and have that next opportunity for somebody. And I think, I just think what a powerful image. And I think it kind of goes with this, is because you look at the wealthy, they already have it, even the spiritual wealthy. But even if we are or are not spiritually wealthy, we got to be able to pull somebody up with us. Because one of my biggest things is, how cool would it be to have an impact on somebody so much that when they walk through the gates, I don't know if you'd have this interaction, but they say, hey, man, when you did that for me, that's why I'm here. Right? And I think that could be such the coolest thing, because it's a family reunion, man. When we get there, I
heard someone say this, and I'm sure you guys have heard this, but something along the lines of you don't know when you meet a person that you might be the only Jesus that they ever meet. You might be the only person that will speak truth to them, and you just don't know. So how can you deny that person of that truth and that love, that level of love that what Christ did for them?
So good.
That's all I got. Nate, that was good. Nate fired out some good questions tonight.
He's prepared, always prepared. I love that. He brought it.
I figured it's been a few weeks, so I had to make my strong re-entrance.
You did. You did.
Man. It's that Knoxville water. The Knoxville water.
I do enjoy the water around here.
Yeah. Let me say one final comment here, just real quick. I feel like Nate has, he should always be living there. Just the way he talks.
Yeah.
You have such a southern drawl. I don't know where it came from, but you have it down already.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I've lived in Lancaster for a long time. I lived in Louisville, Kentucky. I roomed with kids when I went on internships that were from Georgia and Alabama.
Yep.
And everything just mixes in. And so I think it's so funny when somebody says something, because with me, I do it without thinking. When I'm home, it gets a little more northern. When I'm down south, it gets a little more southern. And I just don't even think about it. It's not me trying it. It just happens.
You definitely have it. He fit right in.
Yeah.
Wait, before we pray, is that your buck up there behind you? Is that
There he is. He looks small from that. Like, we gotta.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Man, what a
Dude.
day that was.
He did great, man. He did great.
Yeah, I rewatched that video twice, like in the past 2 weeks.
That's
That's
why
awesome,
I love filming, man. For that
Oh my
stuff.
gosh.
Can't be.
I gotta go watch it now. Literally, I'm gonna go watch it after this.
Yeah.
Because
I don't know if Jarrett's on tonight, but he was like, "Where do I watch that?" And I was like, "Dude, hit the YouTube, man."
come on, Jarrett. He's 70 days in without missing a day. He doesn't even know about our YouTube channel. My
Yeah.
God.
That hurts.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we? Who wants to pray then to wrap us up here, and then we'll.
I'll bring us home tonight.
Bring us home.
Nate did such a good job.
Killed it.
Anchored us tonight. I'll take us home. Dear Lord, thank you so much again for this opportunity tonight. We just pray that you continue to work on the world's hearts, and that you would just continue to show them just ways to love thy neighbor, whether that's their next door neighbor or the person they live with, their spouse or their sister or their brother. We just pray that you continue to give hope to those that might not have hope right now, just all the things they're going through. We just continue to pray that you work through us to build this rooted community so others can come and learn and share and just be something they look forward to every Sunday, Lord. We just continue to hope that grows, and that whatever your will is for that we will see that through. We're just happy to have Nate with us again tonight, back in the chair in Nashville. We're just glad he got there safe, and we continue to pray for him and everything that he's going to do during his transition, Lord. And we just continue to pray for our country and the decisions that they continue to have to make, and the upcoming election and all of those just interesting things that are about to happen. We know that your hand's all over it, Lord, in one way or another, and that there's a reason for things that might seem a little bit off right now, Lord. And we just continue to have faith in you and hope in you, and we just love you so much, and we're just grateful to have a relationship with you and that you've given us salvation, Lord. And in your name we pray and all these things. Amen.
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 If anybody wants a hat, Nate,
There he
show him
is.
the hat. Show him the purple hat again.
Dude.
Purple
They
hat.
are sick.
It's a
We
black
got-
hat.
Let me see.
It's
I got the box.
purple.
We have.
Jarrett, you need to get Jarrett one of those hats, dude. Get him a hat, would you? My
Yeah.
goodness. Guy's 70 days in.
All right, so we have 5 black hats left, and if someone really wants the white and gray, I have not actually worn mine yet, but I will offer that as well.
I love this hat, the white and gray.
They're good hat. The white and gray is a hit, man. That's a good hat.
solid.
They
they're
literally sold them all before we even
See,
put them up.
That's
like rubber,
are they
puffy
gonna help?
rubber.
Not
A
really.
little bit.
Sorta.
They're good hats. So
I
if
think I
anybody
did
wants a
post a
hat,
picture of them too on Instagram. So
yeah, check them out.
I'm just gonna leave this up here till we let that soak in a little bit.
and Heather, it's Knoxville. I know. Yeah, during
Nashville.
prayer, I think you said Nashville, but
I mean,
Knoxville. If anyone knows anyone with land around here,
Yeah, we need some hunting land in Tennessee, people.
Let me know.
we can meet in Nashville though, because Nashville's a fun city. We can go
Not far. So,
listen to live country music. I'm in for that.
oh yeah,
Man.
oh yeah.
I'll have to hit it. Maybe we'll have to hit a country concert while we're out there in Knoxville. I bet you they have some good ones.
Oh, for sure. I would imagine. I haven't found it yet, but there's probably a small little concert venue that's got some of the up and coming. Those are always my favorite concerts. I love like the small venue concerts.
I'm in for that. I'm in.
Heck yeah.
All right, fellas.
Alrighty.
Another good Sunday. Glad to have everybody in the house tonight. It was awesome.
That was good. Thanks
Any,
everybody for tuning in tonight. Nate killed it tonight.
mhm.
But we'll be back next week. We're going to keep blowing through James. I think it's been good. I've enjoyed it. I love James. Probably my favorite book of the Bible. So we're going to keep blowing through.
Yeah, and next week we'll be talking more about our new sponsor, Hoyt.
Yep. Boy.
I'm gonna keep
Kidding.
adding.
Kidding.
I just need to keep finding banners on eBay.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah,
guys.
let's get out of here. This is getting out of hand.
Yeah. Hey, have a good night, guys, and have a good week. And we'll talk to you next week.
See you guys.
See ya.
See you.